Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special webinar exclusively for our Dun & Bradstreet clients. The topic of today's webinar is Impact of COVID-19 on Businesses and the Way Forward, focusing on the new normal. Our speaker today is Dr. Arun Singh, who's the Chief Economist at Dun & Bradstreet, India. Before we begin the session, I would like to tell you all about certain things that we will follow during the webinar. All participants have been muted on entry to avoid disruption during the webinar. There is a chat window on your screen where you can post comments. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session where you will see a pop-up window where you can ask your questions. So I request you to kindly note down any questions that you may have and ask the same during the Q&A session. During the presentation, we will also ask you to vote on a few polls. Please cast your vote when you see a pop-up window that appears on your screen. We will display the result of the poll while we are in the webinar. I will now hand over the control to Dr. Arun Singh.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. And thank you for participating in such a, in a scenario where everyone is troubled, everyone is wondering what's going to happen, and everyone is concerned about COVID-19 and its impact on our business. Today, I'm going to speak on the impact of COVID-19 on our businesses and some of the sectors and economy, and what is way forward look like and how new normal will look like, because we cannot afford to keep our businesses shut at this point of time. We have to take a head on with this crisis and we have to move on. Where is estimates available from IMF, from a World Bank, from various research houses, from various individual researchers and corporate houses, that things that started comparing this COVID-19 with 1929 Great Depression, 2008 Great Depression, and some of the other pandemics. But the crisis is so bad that it's impacted almost 180 countries. And that's what basically we are going to discuss today. And we are going to analyze how this impact is going to be impacted our own businesses, and how we should navigate ourselves during this period of crisis so as one can minimize the impact of COVID-19 on our businesses. So without taking much of your time, let me take you directly to the presentation today. So this section, today's presentation is divided into the broadly three section. One, I'm going to speak on what is the impact on COVID-19 on our businesses. The second, how all we can weather into this storm and sail through these storms, and how we can come out successfully. And the third section, which I'm going to talk about, how the way forward look like and how we can focus on the new normal to navigate in this period of time. And then last section, which I'm going to touch base, is just basically in this period of crisis, what DNB is doing as an organization globally, and what we can help you to navigate in this period of crisis. So moving on, so three specific questions everyone is asking to ourselves and to our colleague and to our to our customer, to our vendor, and to the larger audience. The three specific questions are: how deep are the demand reduction look like? Basically, the depth of the disruption. What is the length of disruption? How long could it last? And then third, what could be the shape of recovery look like? All the three things basically is a burning issue, and then one of the biggest question all of us are asking to various agencies outside, and of course the inside your own company. I will try to cover up all the things with some statistics and some data facts, and we'll see how each questions are, how answers to each questions are looking like. Now, look at some of the data on the number of infected people because of the COVID-19. The thing started in January. And when things started picking up towards the end of January 2020, and then more people got infected in China, the R analysis to the customer and to the vendor, that how we can help and how companies can help to basically shift the global the supply chain from a China to the rest of the world, so that at least they can mitigate some of the risk. And that was the analysis we're focusing around. And there was a whole lot of work done around that from the various agencies, from our own company, and then rest of the world. Gradually, what has happened that in just 1 month of time, from end of January to end of February, things deteriorated for China, and from less than 300, it gone up to more than 80,000 in just 1 month. And after that, this plateau is like flat, the blue line. And at the same time, what has happened, the the time when it was flattening for China, the number of infected people in the global in other countries started going up. Now today, that's have basically deteriorated. Where China is flat, rest of the world is still going up, and there's absolutely no sign that when it's going to plateau and when it's going to be flat. And US being the biggest impacted single country in the world, more than 500,000 of cases, and that severely impacted whole population. So that's one concern coming from the US. The problem here, the message what I just want to highlight here, how the supply chain considerations shifted from just China to the rest of the world. And it just matter of 1.5 months, things completely deteriorated. More and more country got impacted. So the conversation around supply chain has completely gone into the different direction and gone into the different conversation all put together. Now, moving on, some of the countries, of course, have shown sign of flattening. Spain, Italy, after showing some painful stuff, there's some early sign of recovery. That's one thing. US continued to be impacted, and there's absolutely no visible sign of recovery as of now. India, of course, we are adding on an average basis something around 1,000 cases every day last few days. So that's one concern from India coming yet. Now, this brings to, that was basically the first part. Now the second part, how long it will take to recover, how long it will take to keep impacting all of us. The critical part, if you see, it took almost 28 days, or maybe even slightly less than 30 days, for China to go from 300 to something around 80,000 total infected people in just matter of less than 1 month. But from there to come down to less than 2,000 cases today, it took almost 2 months. If same learning, same experience, or same understanding, if I have to apply for the rest of the world, and I assume that today, if that has been plateau at the world level, or that's a flat, which means it will take another 2 months to come down to the normal, which means by then we'll be mid of June. And even if we recover, that's based on the assumption, even if we recover, it will have a staggered recovery. It will have a staggered re-emergence of some of the population, some of the companies, some of the activity, which means more than 2 months we have to be prepared for the partial recovery. And unfortunately, that's the fact. But we cannot keep our businesses shut. We have to move on. That's basically the idea of today's conversation. We have to carry on our frontline sales. We have to carry on our frontline marketing. We have to carry on our frontline strategy to counter the global recession, to counter the current recessionary trend. Now that brings us to the third part of the questions, is that how fast we are going to recover. So we tried to relate with the previous three crisis. That's what basically most of the people are doing. IMF, individual countries, and various research houses. If we go back to the Great Depression period of 1929, the Dow Jones Industrial Average growth declined by roughly around 90%. And from a peak to bottom, it took 6 months to decline. Within 6 months, things was wiped out. And it is something around 90% Dow Jones Industrial Average decline. During 1987 crisis, within 2 months, things deteriorated and Dow Jones Industrial Average declined by something around 36%. The most recent 2008 global financial crisis, Lehman crisis is the famous by name. It took almost 17 months to decline from a peak to the bottom. 17 months it took. And during that phase, Dow Jones Industrial Average declined by 54%, more than 50%. Now today, as I take a data till end of January, it's not even not end of March, it's not even April data, it's end of March. It took less than 2 months, just 1.5 months to to decline from top to bottom, and 37%, something around 40%, your Dow Jones Industrial Average decline. Now, how recovery look like? If you see, 1929, it took almost 22 years to recover. It took 2 years during 1997 crisis to recover, and it took 5 years during 2008 global financial crisis. Now today, see, I have put the question mark because that question mark depend on how fast we are going to recover the basic crisis, the basic problem. When I say basic problem, means the number of infected people are down to the tolerable limit. Now, one silver lining in this is that unfortunately, in the previous three crises, it was all because of the economic shock. Economic cycle is a part of economic business process, is part of supply and demand, and then the response of government and the policy maker toward the supply and demand. That was basically the outcome of that, and that's the crisis, what we call economic crisis. And today's crisis, this COVID-19 crisis, is not economic crisis. It's external crisis. It's the pandemic crisis. It doesn't have to do anything with the economic crisis, but it's going to have a maximum hit or impact on the economy. So the need of the moment we recover from the crisis, the moment we recover or the control the coronavirus outbreak, the recovery will be much faster than what we have seen in the previous three phases, because this phase is not driven by the economic crisis, at least true for Indian economy, because we have seen the green shoots visible in month of December 2019 in various surveys indicated that it was coming to the normal, which means we have a demand, is that demand is hampered by the coronavirus outbreak. And the moment we control, things could become a normal at much faster rate than compared to the previous three crises. Now, how that impact, how any of this pandemic, epidemic, or the global phenomena or global headwind impact the local companies or any company, let's say, operating within manufacturing at a very small scale, not have any global linkages, does not have any export-import scenario, or operating from, let's say, any part of the North India, East India, West India, South India, how they feel the impact. Basically, there are two broad impacts. One is the global factor, one is the domestic factor. The culmination of both, the interaction of both, gives a three subsections, sub-parameters. That's the legal linkages, trade supply, trade channel, what we call a supply chain, and the domestic macroeconomic factor. The legal linkages is basically the domestic company have some sort of exposure or the stake in any of the global companies. That's one. That's how they're getting impacted, and their vendor and the customer getting impacted. And the trade basically export import route, and the macroeconomic factors, their own things. Even the fact that you do not have any exposure to the global economy, you're not engaged in the export import, still got impacted because of the investment flows in the country, the financial market impact, and the currency market. We all have seen what's happening to the Sensex and what's happening to the currency market, and everyone's feeling impacted. So each and every company in India is going to be impacted. The extent, the quantum, and the duration of the impact depends on which sector, which market, which region you're operating, and what is your strategic and financial health of the company. That's basically what the crux of the slide. Now, moving on. Now, globally, we have already, eliminated, we have already written off some of the GDP levels. Now, mid of April, that's a couple of days back, World Economic Forum and of course the IMF and then other research houses, they have come up with the research. I think earlier it was $1 trillion by March 2020. They said the losses will be $1 trillion, but on that loss today gone to the 9 trillion US dollar. That you can expect that almost more than 3 times of India GDP, more than 3 times of India is going to be wiped out from the global GDP map. That's the extent of loss when I'm talking about. And we are the second populous country in the world. Now, 3 times of that is going to be wiped out from the global scenario. One can imagine what is the impact research house are expecting, which means this is going to be severe, which means we cannot remain idle at this point of time, which means we have to move on with the new set of strategy, with a new normal in the mind, so as the impact is much lesser on our individual businesses. Now, how that's impacted? If I look at my database, I found that more than 6,600 companies in my database, and they are pretty large company and then a mid-sized company. Those have some sort of stake in a company or sister company outside India in these set of countries who got impacted by the COVID-19, and US is the most. And roughly around 50% of export import they do are doing with these set of countries who are impacted by the COVID-19. Now that impact one can feel on the Indian entities and the Indian economy. We have already written down some of the GDP for India as well. And various research house talking about 1.5% to 3% GDP growth for the next year. In the current year, I mean to say April to March 2021. That's basically what the extent will have on the businesses and extent on our economy. This all through just the legal linkages, where the trade is a significant portion of our basket. These are the sectors who are going to be impacted. The 6,600 companies operate, 62% of that, they operate in the services sector, and 35% of the company operate within the manufacturing sector. The business services and depository institutions, one of the biggest impacted sector from this global linkages, 23% business services and 12% depository institutions. One can see that these two, and of course, the list goes on, engineering, accounting, services, industrial and commercial machineries, wholesale trade, and things like that. The things moving on. There's many impacted sector. It's going to create a pain for the companies who are operating in this sector, or they have a customer or vendor operating from this particular sector. So that one can have their exposure plan if you're dealing with any of the company in this sector. Now, moving on, what did it mean for all of us? Now, this basically poses several organizational risks, starting from a supply chain that we all have experienced during the month of March and early days of April. Now we are feeling the heat of operational risk. Once things settle down, we all will face the heat of what we call a financial risk and then market. When I start, when talk about a supply chain risk, is basically raw material availability, input cost fluctuation, quality risk. When I say quality risk, all automobile sectors and then heavy engineering goods, they have a serious concern on that. So it's very, very difficult to find an alternate vendor within a short span of time. That lead to our own day-to-day operational concern and business continuity. And gradually, while the 3-month moratorium provided by the RBI, and in fact today there was some announcement which is good and a happy sign for the economy, but most of the company, especially in the MSME segment, is going to have a severe working capital crunch, what we call a financial risk. There will be many default, many bankruptcies, and many concerns not because of the supply side concern, because of the demand side concern. Now, how supply side concern translate to the demand side concern That's basically, starting from your own company operation to shifting to the consumer demand. That's going to happen, and that's what basically things started. Now the demand is going to come down. What it was a couple of months back, there certainly is going to be a different demand framework. So what we are talking about earlier, supply chain risk, now that thing is going to be a demand side risk. The moment demand side risk factor in, then many of the companies going to have a major issues on the financial risk and then payment behavior, and hence the demand for working capital goes up. In that, your reserve bank role and then government role is will be very, very prominent and very important, and they have to shape up how the way they are going to drive this particular sector, especially the MSME. Now, one silver lining from a supply side, perspective, that we have reached out to the company operating in China in late March, and the good news is that 96% of the company, they have resumed operation in the southwest China. More than 70% of the company resumed operation in the northwest China. If I take an average of China, something around 85 to 95% of the companies in China, they have resumed operation, because the COVID cases is less than 2,000 today, the active cases. Which means if any one of us are sourcing our goods from China, there's a happy sign. And of course, they will work around some mechanism how they get the things done from the China in terms of the supply. But that's the silver lining. Does things happen? The 60 days after that, after the initial concern, things are coming to the normal from the China. So that's one silver lining coming from the China. Now moving on to the impact of COVID-19 on some of the sectors in India. What we have done, we have selected a very high regarded, or maybe very high impacted, or much talked about sector today, and we have chosen some of the sectors to study impact on these sectors. What we have done, we have divided impact into two broad categories: the negative impact as well as the positive impact. Not all the sectors will have a negative impact. There are many sectors who are servicing the digital need of the company. They are going to be benefited at this point of time. Within negative impact, we have further classified into the severe, high, and moderate. When I say severe, high, moderate, that's all depend on three considerations. One, whether the sector have to forget the revenue they are going to lose at this point of time, because many sectors they have to forget their revenue loss. Basically, the tourism is not going to recover the losses what they're going to incur at this point of time. There are other sectors consideration. Basically, the demand will be there, just the deferred demand. I have a demand for a certain element. I might not do right now, but I will defer for the next month or few months down the line when things settle down. So that's the one set of sectors. The third set of sector consideration is basically the dependent on other sector, in the sense, you have a logistics sector, for example. Logistics sectors is basically depend on themselves as well as depend on the other sector, let's say manufacturing. Unless manufacturing revives, what they will be going to transporting. That's so three consideration we had, and these three consideration we basically design how impact negative impact of COVID-19 on these sectors. We found the gems and jewelry, entertainment, hospitality, transport, livestock, and tourism are going to have a severe negative impact. Retail, wholesale, electronics, banking, MSM is going to have a high negative impact. Drugs and pharma, automotive, textile, and metal is going to have a moderate negative impact. However, there are sectors like the remote working applications, on-the-top media services, online gaming, e-educations, all the digital related service provider are going to have a maximum positive impact. Now, how recovery look like for these sectors? What we have done, having the three sector consideration and then economy, and then assume that by June, most of the company resume of operation, not just in India, but in other country as well. How the recovery look like? We have divided, it's a short-term recovery period, medium-term recovery period, and the long-term recovery period. And the short-term is basically up to 6 months, 7 to 12 months is basically medium-term, and the long-term we have a more than 12 months, recovery period. What we found that entertainment, gems and jewelry, tourism, hospitality are going to have a recovery period anywhere more than 1 year. Why? Because of the social distancing norm. Even if you start operation, the social distancing norm is going to be rampant in the economy, and in this sector is going to face the maximum heat because they are driven by the mass uh, uh, gathering, and there are some other consideration as well. And then there are other sectors, let's say retail, wholesale trade, and the textiles will have a less, will have just short-term period of time in terms of the recovery. The recovery will be faster because some of the sectors are already operating in the retail and wholesale trade. It's just they are not working on the full capacity. Go back to full capacity, it will take very, very less, number of months as compared to other sectors. So that's how the recovery period look like, and that's how the first section, and the first section talks about that how COVID-19 is going to impact the economy globally as well as India, and how the COVID-19 is going to impact some of our sectors where we are operating, and how the recovery period look like for some of the sectors. Now, before I start our next session, what we have done, we have created a poll for all of you, and that will help us to understand your thinking about and about your perception and your expectation about the impact of COVID-19. Uh, can I request DNB to flash poll, first poll, please? Yeah, so we got the answer of first poll. Basically, more than one third of you have, and in fact, uh, two-thirds of you have seen the no change and the decrease. Basically, now all of us started feeling the pain of the impact of COVID-19 on our web traffic coming to our organization. Now, moving to the second part of sections today, how we can basically weather, you know, from the storm, and how we can navigate uh, during this crisis, and how we can help our customer to navigate in their period of crisis. What we have done, we are tracking the recession period uh, last 20 years. Um, it's not just today at DNB. We have not done just today. We have been, in fact, tracked the recession phase in the past, 2001, in 1987, and in fact 1998. Also, we have done that. And 2001 during dot-com crisis, in 2008 during great financial crisis. What we found, unfortunately, during the crisis period of 2001 and 2008, the bankruptcy rate has gone up by 35%, over and above the existing bankruptcy rate during that phase. It's more than 1 lakh entity went bankrupt during that phase. And the velocity of bankruptcy was so high that that was something around 3 times higher than during the expansion phase of what we call expansion phase of 2010 to 2019. The idea of this slide is to show that each and every recessionary phase brings only one outcome is that the bankruptcy. That's the data coming from the US because we have data on the US historically, and that's how, and that the similar story will be true for most of the economy during this period of crisis. Which means now the idea here is to present that now the moment things get over, the moment COVID-19 things get over, because that's similar to one of the crises what we have seen. The moment that things over, we'll have a serious bankruptcy issue. How one can avoid that? Basically, there are many stuff. So what we have done for a company to look around, each and every company have repositioned them on the 2x2 matrix. The two metrics of the four is basically strategic position, either strong or weak. And then another two metrics of the four is the financial strength, that's a weak or strong. Each company, depending on their financial strength and then strategic position, have a four different outcome. One, when you're weak on the both, the outcome will be the spin off the certain business unit, sell stake in the company. When you are strong in the financial strength but weak on the strategic position, that's basically you create a core areas of the competitiveness, and of course put money into that area. When you are strong in both areas, that's the basically time when you start investing in the product leadership team. Grab attract merger and acquisition opportunity. This is the right time for you to get into this space. And when you are strong on the strategic position, but unfortunately weak on the financial strength, then basically some of the strategic cost transformation program is the need of the hour. Focus on the core area, but the strategic cost will have a maximum impact. Now that brings to the core discussion point on what the sales look like. So if you see in month of January, most of us had a plan, and what we were that plan was basically that we'll get up in the morning tomorrow and we'll start implementing that plan. That plan was basically how to increase my marketing technique or tactics, or the sales pipeline, and of course the the sales convertibility. But that all have changed now. That's completely different in the COVID-19. I can understand in the marketing space. Now, success at this point of time, the success depends on things outside our control. What we have done, there's a Topo COVID-19 impact survey. They found that 80% of the surveyed participants expect the decrease in the pipeline. What we need to do at this point of time, that organizations still need to fuel growth, but faced with the crisis fueled by the COVID-19, what they need to overcome these challenges with the pipeline health and account profitability once sales are closed. That brings us to the questions of the risk-adjusted go-to-market planning. So basically, the question is that there's a third element coming into the marketing and the sales organization. It's not just the fit and the intent. It's about how risky my new customer acquisition will be, because in the COVID-19, the risk profile of most of the customers has shifted or changed. That's the need of R to understand. I mean, if I have to look at some of the, working done, some of the code by the Warren Buffett, in the sense, diversification is not the basically stuff at this point of time. That's the most of the us doing. What we need to do, we put all the eggs into the one basket and monitor and look at that. That's the basically stuff is the need of the hour. The pressure will be on the collection. That brings us to the point that if we neglect how to select the target account, and we neglect the risk account or risk consideration into the account planning, the cost of acquiring any particular customer will go up. So there's a three scenario. What's happening today, the business as usual. I've assumed that, let's say we have $1,000 budget of the marketing spend, and that we do through events, through emails, through paid media. That convert into the 100 leads, 40 meetings, and 10 sales. Now, the business as usual, we are not looking into the consideration for the risk and then collection issues. Assuming that there's 100% of the customer, 100% of the 10 customer what we have acquired are able to pay me back or pay to me end of the maturity or end of the my invoice date. The cost of acquiring each customer is $100. Now, today, what's going to be a new normal at this point of time and during the COVID-19 days or after COVID-19 days? And I have done some consideration that because the physical event is not going to be possible in the near time. And I have considered, let's say, not that conservative enough to assume that instead of $1,000 what used to be in the business as usual, I'm putting $900 into the financial into the sales to acquire the lead. Thus transfer to 70 lead, 30 meeting, and 5 sales. Now that's basically brings to the something around what we call $180 per account. But if I assume that there will be a two customer going to default, my cost of acquiring goes up to something called a 300 account. Basically, the marketers, sellers may not be measured on being able to collect payment, but it is significant impact on the performance of the business. This illustrates why it is critical to factor in risk in times of crisis, whether it be caused by the pandemic, war, natural disasters, or some other issues. Now that brings to the third part, that how we can add risk element as an additional dimension in the account selection, other than your fit and intent part. Now the intent and fit is basically digital activity, web visit, prospect engagement. Fit is basically location, industry, and size. That's basically normally what we do in the sales and the marketing organization to get customer on board and to get stuff like that. So the third element is basically my vendor, my customer is going to be operated in the, let's say, impacted by the COVID-19, or they're operating from a COVID-19 area, or there is significant change in the business operation because of the compulsory lockdown in the country or city in the district, or they're basically going to be viability delinquencies and failure score, or the ability to pay will be impacted. That's basically the third element which we need to talk about. Now, these all things come when we talk about a risk element. A risk element is not easy to adjust. That basically comes to the information gap, what we call under selection. There's two things. One, what we know about the particular account, what the account know themselves. That's one thing. Three things we can do to minimize that account planning. Basically, market to the right account, and certainly that all the risky account should be categorized differently or should be treated differently. Assess your pipeline risk, because you never know, your pipeline already have deteriorated or squeezed during the COVID-19. And the third, allocate resources based on the financial risk, which basically talk about all the financial risk which they are going to face because if that is the case, then one can give the discount or not, or some other element that can be decided basis on that. That's the basically part of the second section. Now, before we move to the third section, I have a second poll. Can I request DNB to flash second poll on the screen, please? Yeah, so we got the outcome of second poll. More than 60% of the participation, they're saying the decrease in the marketing budget beyond 10%, which is huge impact. And in fact, something around 90, more than 92% are expecting decrease either 10% or more than 10%. That's a huge impact going to be. Now that brings us back to the third element of that way ahead and how we can focus on the new normal. Basically, there are five impact areas which I'll touch base, but the critical part is what basically the sales and marketing team is doing is the heart framework. The heart framework, each alphabet of heart, it basically stands for something. Your H is, stands for humanize your company, educate consumers about the change, assure consumers the company's value will continue, revolutionize what consumers value about your business, and then last will be basically tackle the future. Now, the summary of the heart framework is basically how good or how fast you are able to connect with your customer and tell them that you are in with them in the crisis of the need, not basically, just for the pricing part or just for the money consideration. Basically, you have the communication has to be that how you have evolved your business proposition on the business model to help customer in this time of crisis and navigate from during this period of crisis. That's a hard framework look like. Now moving on to the five impacted area. The first impacted area is that there's no longer is going to be the one-to-one meeting. It's going to be a digital meeting, phone calls, and then emails. In that, stay informed, tailor your value proposition within the context of the current environment, engage buyers where they are, think digitally. Now, the very important part, what was the need in month of January or early February? The need is different at this point of time. The need of the hour to understand what was the need at that point of time and how one can tailor to adjust that need. That's the basically the change we need to do to ensure that we get the success in the first impacted area. The second impacted area is basically when we generate our lead used to be through large trade shows, conferences, and then the other stuff. Now that's not happening, which means we need to have a digital customer engagement strategies moving forward or webinar. The need of the hour, how fast we're able to engage with the knowledge provider in terms of the webinar, in terms of getting into the visual storytelling to a customer to convey the message and to reach out to the wider audience through digital channel to engage with them and generate the lead from there. That's the need of the hour. Now, moving to the third impacted area is that now traditional 9 to 5 office schedule is out of the window today. My customer, your customer are basically starting day not from a 9 o'clock, not from the office hours. Sometimes they start from 7 o'clock. The engagement is basically that we should know what point of the time, what mode of digital transformation or digital channel or digital method they are using, whether the email or Facebook or some other channel. For example, email engagement 11 o'clock in the in a day is the highest in terms of email click or email opening. If I'm getting engaged with my customer at that point of time, it makes imminent sense that we engage through email. But when we are engaging with the customer 8 o'clock in the evening or 9 o'clock in the evening or 10 o'clock in the evening, that time your Facebook engagement is on the top, which means we should know when my customer is basically using what type of electronic method and when. That's very critical. That brings the fourth impacted party is that traditional corporate board lines, because the offices is shut, the board line is not working, which means we are reaching out to the direct line, email, stuff like that. They're basically how one can leverage on the acceleration or prospecting tools to ensure that our sales team are better equipped, or we are using the next 2 months to build a healthy pipeline. Because the moment everything is settled down, we are the first company to hit the ground ahead of the curve and ahead of the rest of the world, the rest of the company, to reap the maximum benefit. Because by the time when we start building our pipeline, it will be too late. Because that's the biggest time at this point of time. And this time, the critical part to connect through email or connect through direct line is that there's no middle person. Let's say top 500 CEOs or top 1000 CEOs I'm trying to reach out. That is basically no secretary picking the phone, whether the customer is in the US or UK or any European market. That's a basically direct connect, and that will be the benefit we'll have at this point of time. Now, moving on, the fifth impacted party or fifth impacted consideration is that the old keywords have changed completely. For example, we used to use small businesses banking, treasury management, commercial loans to get some of the customer onboarded, stuff like that. But that's a completely changed. Now, most of your customer, most of other vendor or customer in the framework are using emergency line of credit, quick cash for small business, payment term flexibility, things like that. That's completely changed now. We should be knowing what the COVID-19 has changed in terms of the keyword search and how that keyword search can be utilized, used to reach out to customer and to reach out to the prospect and to find out what the new keyword look like, so as you are better informed of the market. That's the five impacted area, and that's basically all about the third section. Before moving on, the fourth section, basically what DNB can help. We are into the third poll stage. Can I request DNB to flash the third poll, please? Yeah, so I think 70% of you have assumed that now most preferred channel to populate your sales funnel is a organic digital. That's a significant outcome of the survey. That's great. Now moving on to the fourth and the last section of today's presentation, how DNB can help in this period of crisis. So what we are doing globally, that we are constructing a DNB business COVID-19 business impact index. Our analytics teams are basically available for the consultation, but they are building this index. This will have various considerations like industry level unemployment data, digital data, layoff data, outgoing inquiries data, DNB internal updates, and then of course foot traffic data. The idea of COVID-19 impact index is basically not to access just your own impact area, also your customer impact and your vendor impact, and vendor impact, and customer impact. It's basically a whole chain can be assessed, that whether my supply chain and my marketing, my company's performance is going to impact it because of my own performance, or my customer performance, or my vendor's performance. That's all basically talks about in the COVID-19 impact talks about all that. With that, I will end my presentation, and thank you for participating in this time in this webinar. And I think Q&A is open for all of you. Looking forward for Q&A. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. You can post your questions on the Q&A panel, and we will have them answered. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's one question on the SME, that they are not tech savvy. So how does the digital help those clients? So you're right that they are not technically savvy. In fact, let's say I'll tell you some of the statistics available at this point of time, that out of 81 million economic entity which we have estimated in India, these economic entities basically street vendor as well as a big corporate group. Out of 81 million economic entity, 27 million economic entities are operating with one labor, or with one labor and operating from a permanent establishment. So what we call this 27 million economic entities are basically a commercial entities who basically contributing to the economy. That's basically a large company as well as the MSME. In that we have 99%, in fact more than 99% is the SME, which can pretty much everything in 27 million is what we can say at the MSME. And out of that you have 94% of the company, the unorganized sector. But out of 6%, what a part of organized, that basically just 2% a company are basically a digitally active company at this point of time. But more than 20-25% company, they are not digitally active, but they have some sort of internet or some sort of digital devices, but they are not using this one, but they used to use. That's the statistics, which means more than 25% of company either have they're using digital platform, or they have inclination to do that. Now when I say inclination to do that, now they don't have a choice. We're talking about digital framework for quite some time, but that success has not been done, other than the banking space. But now this is time, and most of us have adopted that. Most of us have changed that. Now, just imagine example of many companies, including us. The time taken to turn around the story from no working from home environment to working from home is very less number of days. And still there are 30-35% of the company said that they have some sort of framework to allow company to work from home. In India, we have done survey couple of months back before the COVID-19 impacted. That was a timely research done, and that's the framework. So the need of the hour for most of the MSMEs that they have to quickly switch whether they have support or not to the digital method, and that most of the company, at least I know, I'm aware of, that they are doing that. While they took 1 week to turn around whole story, but that basically happened for them, and that's the stuff we can do. And I think gradually we progress, things will improve for those sectors as well. Yeah, so there's one questions on basically the exposure to the Middle East and the North Africa. Of course, there are each and every market, each and every region has a particular uh, uh, crisis, or the complexity, what the particular government have addressed the concern, what is exposure of the world economy to the particular country, and then your individual exposure to the country, what is the response of that particular country on the region, whether it's complete lockdown or partial lockdown or no impact at all these consideration are given in that impact report. What we can do, that we can get in touch with you, offline, in that, because that the understanding has to be deep enough, and the understanding has to be complex enough to mitigate the risk, because one has to understand what is the impact on your market, because operating in this market because of the COVID-19, and then solutioning has to be customized that way. So I think we can touch base after the webinar to understand your concerns better, and then one can help accordingly. Thank you. So certainly, I said that some of the sectors where got immediate hit, we basically assess the impact of COVID-19 on the sector. There are almost 9 to 10 sector under study, including the IT services, in consideration, and that will be a part of our overall research pack released in the in a few days time. But what's happening at this point of time in IT services, like most of the company which we know, we are looking at that, they are working, they are getting benefit, and then two things happening. One, in India, I think after 20th of April, there will be relaxation, and that's a part of this one, and that one can get a benefit of this. The second thing is, even in the outside market, there's a partial and then semi-lockdown phase where this set of companies are working, and they're doing good job. So impact is not that bad on these sectors. It's just basically their customer is not operating, so they're not able to service them. But there are many customers who are in the digital space, they're working and they're servicing. So the impact is not that high. But certainly for a detailed analysis, what I can do once the stuff done, I will send you across for detailed consideration. Now, certainly, I think what's going to happen globally once things settle down. I think there are many questions coming up on this space, and that's going to be a new norm. That's going to be uh, the globally policymakers are going to change their the approach towards the uh, setting up a entity in the China, or whether they can move on, whether they can go to some other market. What's happening at this point of time, that most of the companies are shifting, thinking to whether they can move their base from China to some other market or not. That's basically things happening at this point of time. What's happening that for India, we are in a better shape in terms of the business continuity process, in terms of the labor cost, in terms of what we call ease of doing business in last 6-7 years. I think we have done good job on certain element now, and in fact, geographically on the global map, we are not far from China. There will be some policy consideration happening when things settle down. There's a huge opportunity, investment opportunity for the most of the companies to put money in India. Now that response depends on how fast our Indian entity and company and the government are doing to ensure that we are here to help global manufacturer and to protect the supply chain. That's the basically need of the hour, but there is a huge opportunity coming in our way. So I think one very important question in the fintech space. If you see, fintech has done a great job, and it's a massive job they have done. Now, what's happening at this point of time is basically the two things. One, you impose some sort of rules and regulation to the masses to use the digital method, or digital lending, or digital platform to use certain things, and or the scenario created that you are forced to use that one after demonetization phase. You see that there's a fintech industry of surge, and the digital lending have gone up. Whether talk about the e-wallet, whether talk about digital method, or what I'm saying, the paperless method gone up significantly. And during this time of the this time what's happening, that it's very important that there's a push toward the digital lending, and that's going to be a huge success or positive for the fintech industry. And I believe that fintech industry is going to get a maximum benefit from that. So one, I said that most of the recovery from here are based on the assumption that by June things should be normal. And as I said, for India, the demand was not an issue. And as against the rest of the world, the demand is not an issue for India, because in the month of uh, January, early January or the late December, we have seen the revival in the economic activity. We have seen the optimism returning to this one. It just basically we are waiting for COVID to settle down. The moment COVID settle down, most of the industry will take 6 months to 1 year to recover, depending on which sector. That's what I projected on one of the slides, that which sector you belongs to and what are the wider considerations given to that sector. That will take so much of time. But I think things should start recovering from a June onward, because I think next month there will be some staggered opening of the industry. Things will start coming to the normal, and of course, government working hard to control the crisis. But at the same time, there are stimulus measures given to the masses, so that will provide some support. But at the same time, most of the other world, China started their operation that will start helping other masses of, most of the company. So recovery period should be basically from 6 months to 1 year period of time, but that depends on which part of sector you're operating in. Now, one question I can, see about cinema industry, automobile. Now, cinema industry, and then industry which is basically uh, driven by our mass gathering. In that, if you see, uh, they are certainly going to be impacted for next 1 year, because there will be social distancing norm. There will be a massive, you know, restriction on the mass gathering. So these are the sector. This one is going to be have a maximum impact. Now, each and every crisis have basically taught us many things that transform the sector to a new thinking. Now, overall, we have moved to the digital platform. See, all of us, there are something around many people, many of us are connected to same webinar through why some digital method through different locations. But the idea is that we all are trying to do business, but at the same time, there's a different method. Each and every industry will go into that revival mode and will have a new innovation coming in. And that innovation will look like that they are crisis proof of the current type of crisis, basically. So certainly we'll talk about the new innovation, talk about the new method of streaming and other things, that all the constraints they are going to have, because they cannot keep industry idle for more than 1 month, 2 months. I mean, that they have to act fast. So I think what's happening that we have already uh, crossed 1 o'clock, and that's basically we are more than more than 10 minutes we are into the new time frame. What I would do at this point of time, because there's many questions listed down, and it will take time to answer all the stuff. What I can do after the conversation, I can have a written answer for all the questions, and can mail it to you individually, maybe today or tomorrow, and along with the link to the PPT. That will be very helpful. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. And with that, I'll hand over to DNB for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you to all our participants today at this webinar. I would request you all to collect all your questions, and you can just write to us at this email ID that I'm putting on the chat group right now.
Next.